Good day, beautiful soul family, and welcome back to On Another Level. So I opened up the Bible and I am reading from Ezekiel 32. Ezekiel chapter 32, verse 17. And on. Now you may say, why don't you just put the scriptures in the description box, say the message, and keep it moving? And the thing is because Divine Spirit directs me to read the scriptures. So as I said before, I used to read tarot. As a matter of fact, I do it in a motivational way. And so, Divine Spirit called me to read His words instead of the tarot. And so there's no question to reading the tarot. And there's no question to read His word. Because it's about the message. We are also in a time where no one's reading the Bible. I don't want to say no one because there are a lot of people reading the Bible, but it is not read often. That's a good phrase. It is not read often. So maybe there is someone, maybe it's that person is not you, but there is someone who would like to hear this. Now in saying that, from burning incense, I'm burning frankincense and myrrh from the resin. And there are people who don't want to hear it. And usually those people who do not want to hear it, have edged themselves out, edged God out of their life. Because just in hearing Divine Spirit's words, it will bring you comfort. Now lately, as I've been opening the Bible, I've noticed that it's a lot of decrees, a lot of destruction. What's so interesting is that it depends. It depends on who's watching. For some, it's not happy. For others, they're overjoyed. The question is, as I read this word, where does it meet you where you stand? You see, there's a lot of people who hear this. There are a lot of people who are happy. Who will be happy, who probably read this over and over again, and they call it lasting justice. There are others who will be disrupted, who will be disturbed. And the thing is, if this scripture, if what I'm reading irritates you in any way, shape, or form, and you want to know why, it's because you must go within. And there must be a cleanup. It's like, it's like going to I remember I went back to New York, and I went back to a neighborhood where, I used to love this park called Edgar Allan Poe. Now, it was not really like a park. It was like just a gathering place where people would come. They had like a gazebo in the middle of the park, but there was a lot of trees and a lot of benches. It was really like a sitting park. But you know, well, you don't know, but when I went when I was younger, I remember my mom. She bought me these black roller skates with some high beam yellow wheels. And I remember that I did not know how to skate, but I was determined on learning how to skate because my mom bought this for me. I remember me taking myself to the park. And I learned how to roller skate. Now, I'm not going to get caught up in the fact that no one taught me. Oh, no. That's just another sob story. I got out there and I learned. I utilized determination to learn how to roller skate. And I did. First, of course, roller skating forwards. So I would roller skate forwards, I would fall, and I would get back out there to the park, and I'd do it again. It was just something I was very, I was just very determined. I was very focused on it. It fizzed out when it came to roller blades, but with the roller skates, it just felt so good. And then there was a person, oh my goodness, I remember, and I really don't know what it has to do with this, but there was a person who had, I remember. There was a person who had roller skates. It was an African American person, and he was roller skating backwards so amazingly well. And I wanted to ask him, but I never got a chance. I was very young. And so I remember, I remember asking him. After a while I asked, I said, how do you roller skate backwards? And he said, the same way as you roller skate forwards, but you're pushing out. And it's a no-brainer, but with application, I was able to roller skate backwards. I just felt so free roller skating, waking up in the morning, and when I could go roller skate, every day just got better and better and better. And I remember going up to gazebo and doing all these different tricks and stuff. All of it was taught. I taught myself. I've set my mind to it. I may have to teach. I had to teach myself. I didn't have that moments where parents took their kids to the park. I rode my bike by myself. I roller skated by myself. But this is not the pity party. This is about understanding what you can do on your own. Now, anyways, as I got older, I went back to that park. And it was just so much dirty. The gazebo had a fresh layer of graffiti on it. It just didn't feel the same way. And so, as we look in our life, and we revisit the things that we used to do, How does it make you feel? Is it the same? In the beginning, there's glitz and glamour, but after a while, it ways away. Divine Spirit, I ask that you please help me to read your word. Your word remains the same. Your word does not deteriorate. Divine Spirit was telling me as I was reading the word is that what Divine Spirit puts to death, why are you resurrecting? And I remember seeing different movies, and they say it's not good to put forth magic towards things that have come to its ending. And they say, you know, when a person dies, you should not try to resurrect the person. One, you don't have the power. And two, the person that they used to be as they come back are not the same. What's so interesting is Divine Spirit is showing me this. There was a time frame when Egypt had an alliance with the Israelites. They went through a woe. With the assistance of Joseph, with the assistance of Divine Spirit, really, because Joseph was just a servant of Divine Spirit. And Egypt was saved. This was before the Israelites went into slavery. But that was a change of the pharaohs. Changing of the pharaohs brought forth an interesting but sad change, and that brought forth its death. And so interesting, as brought out in those different movies where they talk about people raising their family members back to life, but you think they coming back the same way, but something else is there. And that's the same thing with Egypt. Divine Spirit was also telling me as I was reading this that there are those who are uncircumcised. Those who choose not to cut away at their flesh. Cutting away at the flesh, circumcision is not just a tearing away of flesh from the genitalia area of a man, but it is a cutting at the flesh of mankind. And that's the sad part. Cutting away at the things that grips us physically to prevent us from ascending spiritually. Divine Spirit is telling me about a great division. See, in this lifetime, in the age of Aquarius, is about where the spirit and matter form. That is how you're able to be your higher self in these situations. That's how you're able to shine the light in the dark. The thing about it is, beautiful soul family, is that we are utilizing our energy to resurrect things that have been put to death. And instead of cutting away, we are gorging our flesh. We're even putting more on our flesh, more on ourselves, more pressure when there should be a release. And the question is why? The Divine Spirit was also telling me that Satan and the demons are using you. You yourself are in danger. Though you are used and you are paid for it, you yourself are in danger. If you don't turn from your ways. You will be put to death. The Divine Spirit was telling me a couple of days ago, showing me really how a person can look like they're alive, but they're not. The Divine Spirit is telling me now that, when you see a tree and you don't see the tree is moving, you may think, what's going on with the tree? But there's many processes that take place within the tree. You see how the tree goes through its different phases, its different cycles, by the different colors of its leaves, though it stands still. You judge a tree by its fruit. So, what Divine Spirit is telling me is that a person can look like they're alive, but what are they producing? You see, a tree doesn't look like it's alive, but you see that it goes through the different cycles and seasons. You see the tree by its fruits, and it is good. But a person may appear to be alive, but if their fruits are of death, if their fruits of curses, if they're fruits of anything lower base toxic, then the tree itself, the person itself is dead. And it goes more to how are we living? I want to say how are we living, but the truth is, are we living? Because anyone that lives loves and respects life. Are we creating vengeance? Are we utilizing our life to bring forth vengeance, which is of the past and has come to its exact judgment? You see, vengeance is interesting. Divine Spirit says, listen, I am your avenger. Do not take vengeance upon anybody. And whenever a person utilizes vengeance, it's because they're not happy with the judgment from Divine Spirit. And so they try to resurrect things that have been put to death. And Divine Spirit is saying, circumcise yourself. Don't try to revisit things that have been put to an end. They have met their judgment, and when you try to resurrect it, so shall it be. So here, let's read. Egypt and Shion. Don't try to bring forth things. Because based on what you do, you tie yourself to it. It becomes your anchor. And it will bring you down. And that's not just a warning. It's a fact. The more you do, the more you lock yourself in. All I'm doing is telling you what Divine Spirit is telling me. So while you can have an opportunity to finally live, circumcise your flesh. That means cut away at the things that you hold on to. Cut them out, edit it out away from your life, out of what you love. Divine Spirit is showing me a heart. So the things that you love, you're attaching to your heart. And nothing really is supposed to attach to the outside of your heart because it's considered weight. What are the things that you have attached to your heart? Things that you truly love will already be in your heart. And they won't weigh you down. But when you start attaching things onto your heart, that means it's external and that forms as a weight. Egypt and Sheol. In the 12th year, on the 15th day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, wail over the hordes of Egypt, and bring Egypt and the daughters of mighty nations down to the underworld, to be with those who descend to the pit. Who do you surpass in loveliness? Go down and be laid to rest with the uncircumcised. They will fall among those slain by the sword. A sword is appointed. They drag her and all her hordes away. Warrior leaders will speak from the middle of Sheol about him and his allies. They have come down, the uncircumcised lie slain by the sword. Assyria is there with her whole assembly. Her graves are all around her. All of them are slain, fallen by the sword. Her graves are set in the deepest regions of the pit, and her assembly is all around her burial place. All of them are slain, fallen by the sword. Those who once spread terror in the land of the living. Elam is there, with all her hordes around her grave. All of them are slain, fallen by the sword. Those who went down to the underworld, uncircumcised, who once spread their terror in the land of the living, they bear their disgrace with those who descend to the pit among the slain. They prepare a bed for Elam with all her hordes. Her graves are all around her. All of them are uncircumcised, slain by the sword, although their terror was once spread. And in the land of the living they bear their disgrace with those who descend to the pit. They are placed among the slain. Meshach and Tubal are there with all their hordes. Their graves are all around them. All of them are uncircumcised, slain by the sword. Although their terror was once spread in the land of the living, they did not lie down with the fallen warriors of the uncircumcised, who went down to Sheol with their weapons of war. Those swords are placed under their heads, and their shields rested on their bones. Although the terror of these warriors was once in the land of the living, but you will be shattered, and will lie down among the uncircumcised with those slain by the sword. Edom is there, her kings and all her princes, who despite their strength have been placed among those slain by the sword. They lie down with the uncircumcised, with those who descend to the pit. All the leaders of the north and all the Sidonians are there. They went down in shame with the slain. Despite the terror their strength inspired, they lie down uncircumcised with those slain by the sword. They bear their disgrace with those who descend to the pit. Pharaoh will see them and be comforted over all his hordes. Pharaoh and his whole army slain by the sword. This is the declaration of the Lord God. For I will spread my terror in the land of the living. So Pharaoh and all his hordes will be laid to rest among the uncircumcised with those slain by the sword. This is the declaration of the Lord God. What is so interesting is that all these people who choose to resurrect things that have been put to death, who continue to, quote unquote, live their life by bringing forth the spoils of it. You know what's so interesting? I'll tell you what's interesting. As I was praying, I was like, thinking to myself, thank you for taking out people out of my life. And thank you for your presence in my life. Thank you for your light in the darkness. Thank you for your healing in the midst of pain. Because when I think about a true mate, and not that I'm looking, I'm not. I have come to the point of not looking anymore. Because I've went through different stages. And the thing about it is, as I said, Divine Spirit, would I want someone that sleeps around? Would I want someone who disgraces their body, who has no honor for themselves? You know, it's like looking at anything spoiled, and it's molded. And that's how Divine Spirit looks at people who have uncircumcised their flesh, who take joy in sleeping around, who take joy in doing magic and spells to bring forth pain and blockages and hindrance to others. And I was thinking, God, I was like, you know, Divine Spirit, I could not, a person that sleeps around couldn't compliment me. You know, it's one thing to have healing from the past, but it's another thing when you continue to do the same things over and over again. A person that sleeps around with both men and women. A person who takes harmful substances into their bodies, such as weed, cigarettes, liquor. A person who does not rest until they have a bright idea to bring forth dis-ease into one's life. And when I think about it, you know, especially this is for those who are celibate and for those who may go through times where they wonder, you know, is there anybody out there? You have to say to yourself, what do I not have in my life? And it's that cutting away at your flesh. It's like, I will not be complimentary with someone that sleeps around. I will not be complimentary that use the persuasion of its words to come against somebody else. I will not be complimentary to someone who gossips, especially when it's lies. I cannot be complimentary or build any type of trust with anybody who utilizes their time instead of cutting away at their own flesh. They cut away at others. They cut away at love. That could not ever compliment me. And so as you're in your life and you're fulfilling your purpose and you're doing that inner work and you're weeding, you're pruning, that's a cutting away. Pruning to continue to bring forth for development and growth in your life. You know not to resurrect things that have been put to an end. And interesting enough, Divine Spirit is saying, when, like past loves, you don't resurrect things that have been put to an end. And when you do that inner work, and you are healed, And these riffraffs try to come back energetically and physically. You cut them off. By any means necessary. Because if you don't, then you'll be caught up as well. What's so interesting is that these many different people it only takes one thing to bring them to Sheol. And that's a sword that has been appointed. The sword is truth. Truth, in every way, shape, or form, has slain all of these people. It's so interesting because it's talking about them bringing, Egypt in Sheol. Because of the sword, the one sword, because of truth. So you have to say, wow, I've read all of this. But what you have to say to yourself is that these were different people. This wasn't just one person. This was different people who try to resurrect things that have been judged and put to death. And so anyone that tries to resurrect or resurrects anything that has been slain by the sword of truth, you yourself will be put to death. Divine Spirit is telling me it is not about being put to rest. You will be put to death. The one sword of truth. And this is why, beautiful soul family, you must go within. You must rebuild that bridge with Divine Spirit, because it is the truth that sets you free. So again, how are you living your life? Are you taking those seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years as a moment of opportunity to where you can bring forth a clearing, a rejuvenation of not just you, but your bloodline? What are you doing? Or are you still trying to resurrect things that are put to death? So I know this is very, it's very bleak for some. This is also very joyful for others. That you may wonder, Divine Spirit, are you going to act in justice? Are you going to bring forth justice to the very people that continue to create havoc? And Divine Spirit is saying, with this, I've done it before, and it will be done again. Continue to go within. Continue to circumcise your flesh and bring forth a clearing to your life. Continue to build a bridge for connection. Because these people, they use their life to bring forth distress, dis-ease, discomfort, division. It's all about vengeance, really, when you think about it. Trying to carry on something that was put to death. But when you go within with self-love, self-care, self-nurture, and you reconnect with Divine Spirit, you shall be saved. Have a beautiful and wonderful day. Namaste.